First, this is what John Kirby said, and he's the spokesperson for the National Security Council in the US. He says India is a vibrant democracy. Anybody who happens to go to New Delhi can see that for themselves. And certainly, I would expect that strength and health of democratic institutions will be part of the discussion. This is between Prime Minister Modi and President Biden. So why then is Rahul Gandhi and the Congress party saying that India is on a democratic backslide?
You know, I find that argument actually bereft of logic, and I'll tell you why. A, I don't think India as a country needs a certificate from anybody outside our Indian political system or our electorate to get a certificate on how weak or strong our democracy is. So I actually shun this whole idea that somebody else is giving us a lecture on what is the strength of our democracy, the weakness or the health of our democracy. However, having said that, because we are trying to quote him, he also goes on to say that, you know, institutional strength should be discussed. I think Mr. Gandhi is a member of the Indian National Congress. He's a 4-time member of parliament. He is one of the strongest voices of Indian opposition, and he has every business talking about India and its democracy, and so should we. I think that's what democracy is all about: debate, dissent and discussion. And I think if we show the mirror to this government, 9 out of 10 times they run away from a discussion. 10 out of 10 times there is going to be counter reputation assassination campaign that's built, and 100 out of 100 times the government shirks away from responsibility. You look at the 288 people who were killed in the Odisha train accident. What is this whole conspiracy theory that is now being spun? Is this a sign of a mature democracy? In a mature democracy, you take responsibility, you do course correction and you act. So firstly, I actually reject the premise of anybody's statement being quoted who's not an Indian to say Indian democracy has weakened. I think it is our problem. It's an internal problem. It's an Indian problem, and we will find a solution to that. And that's not me saying it. I'm quoting my leader on that.
Fair enough. But Mr. Gandhi raises this every time he goes abroad. And so the accusation from the BJP and from the government is, A, he's attacking India and the Indian government from foreign soil, and you don't wash your dirty linen, especially when you're on foreign soil. And 2, how do you square that with not just what John Kirby said? You have an Australian Prime Minister calling Mr. Modi the boss, comparing him to Bruce Springsteen. You have Joe Biden reportedly telling him at the G7 that he's running out of tickets. People are calling to be attendees for the state dinner. How do you square these two things?
So let me just first answer the boss moment question, because almost everybody on Indian television went berserk reporting it. The day he was called boss, within 24 hours, Australia banned the entry of students from 6 Indian states. I would have also called him boss had he undone that ban. What the personal rapport that Mr. Modi seems to claim at a world stage doesn't translate into anything for the country. Why was the ban not undone for Indian students from 6 states that Australia has imposed within 12 hours of calling him boss? So that's point number 1. Point number 2, you know, this is a very old script. Even before Rahul Gandhi was leaving for the States, I had a joke in office and I say, you know what, the BJP ecosystem, the government, the ministers, they will all be so occupied slamming Rahul Gandhi for first disrespecting Modi and then being anti-Indian. I think what he does strengthens Indian democracy. Who is he talking to in the United States? He's speaking to an Indian audience at times. He's speaking to people who are opinion makers. And I think it is important that he talks about India. We have a seat at the world table. Why should he not? He's well within his rights to. And what is the problem? You can go and speak to the diaspora about Nehru, but we can't show you the mirror on our own democracy. It's a little hypocritical, don't you think?
Ajay, Alok, this is what Rahul Gandhi told a journalist at the National Press Club in Washington. The thing to remember is that Indian democracy is a global public good because India is large enough that a collapse in democracy will affect the entire world. So that is for you to think about how much you have to value Indian democracy. Now, Mr. Gandhi and the Congress party are saying it's not just a democratic backslide. In fact, the words that I've quoted that he has said at the National Press Club in Washington is that Indian democracy itself is on the verge of collapse.
And he has also said it's a public good.
Yeah. Ajay Alok.
Well, Zaka, for Rahul Gandhi, since Nehru's name was mentioned, Nehru famously wrote a book called Discovery of India. And here is a person who is discovering India in US and UK and mentioning and calling the largest democracy of this world by all kind of names, and that weakening of democracy and democracy is in threat. What does he know about democracy? For them, democracy only starts from Ten Janpath and ends at Ten Janpath. That is what its democracy is all about. The one person who doesn't know that India is a nation and call it as a consortium of states, and he was rebuffed then and there in UK by none other than Siddharth Verma, an IITS who is working in the social relation in Cambridge University. And he said very clearly on that very day that your ideas are not only destructive, but it is counterproductive for India. But then also he didn't learn his lesson. He goes to US and he says that Muslims are being threatened and they are not being treated properly in the same way as Dalit were not treated properly in the 80s. This is the kind of depiction of India that he gives in the foreign soil, and then he talks of democracy. So this Bharat Khojo Yatra in UK and US has, I guess, the Americans have given him a tight slap on his face that what he thinks about Indian democracy. Because whatever we say, whatever other people will say, whatever the common man will say, that it's not wise to go and comment and give you a commentary of a below grey matter commentary in the foreign soil, that's not going to affect his health because he's thick-skinned actually. And the people defending him, they also don't have any answer when he speaks about Dalit in 80s. And when he speaks about Muslims and minorities. And Rahul Gandhi and Congress party speaking about Sikh minority. The burden of Sikh massacre of 1984 has not gone out of the memory of this country. So Rahul Gandhi is doing what he loves to do. And it's like Manat Mohabbat ki dukaan, that rightly our president said, that he has opened a mega mall of Nafrat. But
Ajay Alok, the point, one second, also the point that Supriya made about, if the Prime Minister can go abroad and speak about Nehru, why can't Rahul Gandhi speak about Mr. Modi?
Well, the speaking about Mr. Modi and the criticizing Modi is a different thing. He can do so with the Indian diaspora, but speaking about the country, the speaking about foundation of the country, not acknowledging India as a nation, but as a consortium of states, that itself declares and itself shows that what kind of democracy he believes in.
Okay.
These people do not have any faith in democracy. For them, the democracy starts with the family, ends with the family.
Okay, Supriya, quick response, and then
I
I've got
have a
Rajat
very
Sethi
brief
and
point to
Rashid
make.
also.
It's very rich and hypocritical coming from somebody who sits there in an armchair to say Rahul Gandhi doesn't understand democracy. He has been elected exactly by this democratic nation, so don't make stupid, bizarre statements. Also, he calls India a union of states, but guess what?
Just mind your
so
language.
does the Indian constitution.
What kind of stupid statements you are used to making, everybody knows.
In between. I gave you the courtesy. I'm in the studio.
What kind of a stupid statement you always make on the screen, everybody knows. So don't try and teach me.
Because you know what?
You don't do that. And you better mind your language. You just better mind your language. Because the kind of Durlabh Murkh are just moving around with Rahul Gandhi and he's being the top of them. You are one of the slots.
One at a time. Let's take a moment off, please. No, one second.
Just ask her to mend her language.
One second. Make your point.
It's a silly argument and it will be called out.
Make your point, Supriya, and after that I'm going to Rajat Sethi. Yeah.
The very little point that I want to make is that stop lying through your teeth. Don't lie through your teeth. India is a union of states, and guess what? Our constitution also says that. A constitution that you want to constantly attack and
India is not a nation.
Also calls us ourselves union of states.
India is not a nation.
And when you don't agree to that, you happen to see what Karnataka did to you, and very soon others
India is not a nation.
Okay.
India, the constitution of India declares us as a union of states. You know nothing about politics.
One second.
You certainly know nothing about the constitution.